Richard Rothstein's The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America, and Ta-Nehisi Coates' award-winning essay in The Atlantic, The Case for Reparations, tells more personal and sinister stories of how black families and communities were robbed of their wealth, future, and the security for their children. Now, if we want to see why crime is so rampant in some predominantly black and brown communities, connect the dots. Start with generational disenfranchisement. Connect it to the dot of segregation in public facilities, housing, and education. Redlining, the creation of ghettos, and you'll have a poverty trap that is not only hard or impossible to escape, but that in those crowded conditions with limited resources, people are placed in survival mode where violent crime is inevitable and constant. I too have said, look at me. I was poor. I didn't grow up rich. I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth, and I didn't rob, and I didn't steal, and that's true. But for every Tyshawn Gardner, there are 20 more with a different story. Because racism crushes the masses. It sets its gaze on the masses of people to annihilate them, where few escape, but the majority are left with the burden of trying to live day by day. I wish I had time to talk about prison statistics. How, as one scholar writes, the massive misdemeanor system, misdemeanors, fines, traps the innocent, and makes America more unequal. I don't have time to speak of how the building of private prisons ensures that there will never, unless we do something, be fairness in the courts. I don't have time to speak of the effects of poverty and mental illness and how budget cuts to mental health services increases the likelihood of crime and family deterioration. I don't have time to talk about the reach and ramifications of racism and gerrymandering. We've seen it here in Alabama to weaken the political power of minoritized communities, so that now they even are stripped of their power to vote representatives who would advocate for them. I don't have time to talk about the closing of hospitals and clinics in rural communities that makes it almost impossible with someone with a medical emergency to reach quality health care in time. I don't have time to talk about how the pandemic that we barely made it out of affected black and brown communities more adversely than other communities, because citizens in those parts of urban communities and rural communities did not have access to testing, vaccinations, and other life-saving measures that could have rendered a different outcome. We must connect the dots. There is a movie on Hulu, spoiler alert, called Chevalier. It captures in cinematic expression the global reach of the tentacles of racism. The movie, based upon true events in the life of the African French Caribbean musical genius Joseph Bologna, Chevalier de St. George, is the son of a plantation owner and an enslaved woman. Having matriculated at a boarding school in Paris, he is proficient in writing, language, and poetry. He is a master of the sword, maestro of the bow. His musical prowess towers Mozart. He is gifted beyond measure. He is celebrated as a great violinist and is heralded as a true man of France. After being anointed Chevalier de St. George, he is ambitious, and he has his eye set on becoming director of the Paris Opera. There is only one problem. Although he is a true son of France, his skin is his sin. And he is told by the committee in charge, that they favor Christophe Gluck, despite everyone knowing that the Chevalier is the best, despite everyone knowing that he is by far the most talented, the most deserving, the most prepared. They select Gluck as director of the Paris Opera. Well, in a drunken stupor, the Chevalier crashes a banquet held in the honor of the queen. In his drunkenness, he stumbles over to the queen, and he whispers in her ear, he says, "You know that I am the best." To which coldly she replies, "I know, but it does not matter." Then and there, we see a true portrait of what racism is. It is not concerned with right and wrong. It is only concerned with the power to preserve an order that maintains white superiority, white supremacy, and dominance while maintaining the authority to control, exclude, limit, define, and crush any person or group who is a threat to that order. The lessons in the movie don't stop there. The Chevalier falls in love with Marie Josephine. She's a talented and beautiful opera singer. But even in France, love between a black man and a Parisian woman is forbidden. Then in one scene, the Chevalier corners Marie Josephine in a church, and he says to her passionately, pleading, "We can run, we can leave this place, we can go anywhere, we can be together in our own little deserted island." To which she says, "We cannot go anywhere. We will not be happy. We will not be a happy family. We will not be free, neither in England or anywhere." The tentacles of racism have global reach. There is no place this vile and dreaded spirit is prevented from its power to limit who a person loves, where a person can express their God-given right and ability to love and be loved. That was true in the 19th century as well as the 21st. Prerequisites to racial reconciliation. But in closing, if we are going to be reconcilers, you and I must undertake the responsibility of resistance and restoration. It is said that our founding father, George Washington, uttered these words or penned these words: "Let it be told to the future world that in the depth of winter, when nothing but hope and virtue could survive, that the city and the country, alarmed at one common danger, came forth to meet it." Barack Obama, in his first inaugural address, said, "America, let us remember these words. In the face of our common dangers, in the winter of our hardships, let us remember these timeless words. With hope and virtue, let us brave once more the icy currents and endure what storms may come. Let it be said by our children's children that when we were tested, we refused to let this journey end, that we did not turn our back, nor did we falter, nor did we, with our eyes fixed on the horizon of God's grace upon us, we carried forth that great gift of freedom and delivered it safely to future generations. My brothers and sisters here today, the responsibility of resistance and restoration belongs to all of us. It belongs to the son of the slave and the daughter of the slaveholder. It belongs to the great-grandson of those who fought and voted against the 13th Amendment, as well as the great-granddaughter of those who marched and even died to see that the 13th Amendment was passed. We must resist the lie of the black separatists as well as the deception of the white nationalists. We must resist in our homes, at the dinner table, in conversations with the sincere but narrow views of those who have nurtured us at their breasts and held our hands as we took our first steps. We must resist every racial lie on our jobs, even if it costs our careers. We must ensure that people of color and women have a seat at the table, have a clear path for hiring and promotion. We must resist in the church when people have the audacity to say that a woman cannot preach, because again, you can't be right on the race issue and wrong on the issues affecting women. We must resist with every nonviolent means at our disposal. We must resist in the classroom when teachers and administrators and board members refuse to teach the truth about history. We must resist in our city halls when the budgets reflect the bare minimum spending in our communities who are hurting the most. We must also resist hopelessness and fatalism. We must resist bitterness and hatred and the spirit of revenge. We must resist violence and harm. We must resist. Then we must take up the responsibility to build the beloved community. We must take up the responsibility to build bridges where there are only gaps and gulfs. We must take the responsibility to make this world a better place and to ensure that every man, every woman realizes, even in their spirit, that we are created equal, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.